Welcome into the Just Honin podcast, episode number 18 for the boys with your hosts, Justin Mazzola and the
Adam.
Yes, sir. So it's been a while since our last podcast. We filmed a month ago today, and yeah, whether it be busy or personal lives, we've taken a little bit of a time off. Last time we talked, I believe you were in Phoenix for work, and I'm currently filming the podcast from my office. So we've really come full circle. But episode 18, and just excited to dive in.
Yeah. There's been it's been a little bit of a dead period for sports, kind of post Super Bowl. Obviously, sports been going on, but obviously it's not the peak. But I mean, we'll start off right away. March Madness has been going on. Fun as always. Definitely enjoy watching all the games, or as much as I possibly can, because it's definitely hard to watch them all. But we're down to our final four, and for the first time in, I think they said like 2008. I think 2008.
Yep.
The Final Four is all one seeds. What do you think?
I think I mean they've been the dominant teams, I think, throughout the whole season. And you know, I think a lot of people probably picked all the one seeds to make it. But if you're a true March Madness connoisseur, I feel like you got to try and throw in some upsets, and I think it was really hard to do that this year, picking picking upsets. And it really not many upsets happened this
Yeah,
year.
there
There
was no
was
Cinderellas. I think the only team that really makes some sort of noise is a or not a bad seed, but like a lower seed was Arkansas with the 10.
Yeah,
Upset.
Arkansas the 10 beating St. John's number 2, and then like
Hmm.
in the first round, McNeese beat Clemson, which really hurt me.
Yeah.
I had Clemson going to the Elite Eight,
Oh wow.
and Drake beat Missouri, but that was
Hmm.
a, a very popular upset pick by many bracket makers. And the other one being, what was the other 12 seed that won? Colorado State
Colorado State.
won the game against Memphis. And so, but each of those teams lost in the second round. And yes, the only other like higher seed to make it any further was Arkansas making it to the Sweet 16, who I actually got the chance to see play in person. I saw that Arkansas Texas Tech game.
Oh
They're
wow.
playing in the Chase Center in San Francisco. I thought Arkansas, like I got to see them warm up, and I got to see Texas Tech warm up, and like Arkansas looked so big, so athletic. I thought it was gonna be easy for them to win, honestly, compared to what Texas Tech was looking like. But Texas Tech being able to come back from 16 down to win that and go on to play and lose to Florida. But yeah, just
Yeah.
not a lot of upsets, which
I watched that game at home, and I just remember thinking like these teams are so even. Like
yeah,
just the way the game was going, I'm like, this is probably the most even matchup we've had so far. I think that was the first. I don't know if it's been the only, but I know it was the first overtime game
I think it's the
this
only
year.
overtime game all of
Yeah,
March
and I
Madness. Yeah,
mean that's definitely surprising. I mean to mention about like the the top seeds making it far in the Elite Eight, there was only it was one and twos besides Tech, who was the three.
yeah,
Um,
and
St. John's lost to Arkansas, and that was the only two seed not to make the Elite Eight. So it was all the ones, three twos, and a three. Like you rarely see that. You usually see
no,
some sort of Cinderella team sneak into the Elite Eight, even a lower seed sneak into the Final Four. I forget who it was last year, but there definitely was. It was NC State last year with DJ
yeah.
Burns. They were an 11, I believe.
hmm
They might were they even in the play-in or
I
I
don't think they
mean
had to play their way into the tournament, maybe, but
I
yeah,
just wasn't sure
nevertheless, an
because I
11
know they're the
seed.
11, but yeah, usually
Um,
you look for teams like that in March to make some noise, but just not the case this year, which is honestly fine. I mean, it's still exciting. It's still fun to watch. Obviously, I like Cinderellas to win because it's fun. the bracket's not going to be perfect, so I'm not going to be too harsh on that. But all one seeds should be really interesting. I'm just curious, Justin, who do you have as your winner? Who did you predict at the beginning? And
I had
Has that changed?
I I went the easy route. I picked Duke. I think I mean picking the winner is very important. Like when you play in a group of people, you just get the most points for picking the winner, right? But you also want to. It can help to like not pick the favorite because then if, I think 32 or 33% of all brackets made on ESPN pick Duke to win. So you'd figure that a lot of people, we're in a group together that picked Duke, and I think a lot of people did. But the reason why I picked them was they won the ACC tournament without Cooper Flag, and they literally have 5 players on the roster all likely to be drafted this year if they were to go to the draft. I think they've been dominant. They're fun to watch, and yeah, that's who I picked. Who did you pick?
I picked Duke as well. I think they're an exciting team. I think Duke gets a lot of hate, but I think like they've been fun to watch this year, and
Yeah,
like with Cooper Flag, he's exceptional. He's a very high level player. He's easily the number one overall pick. He's just the game changer. And a lot of these like draft prospects, so like you can see they have raw talent and like they have like tremendous skill, but they don't really like not apply into the game, but like step up as like that star player and like take over the game. And like Cooper Flag has shown in the postseason so far that he can step up and take over a game, whether it's him scoring or he gets a ton of assists with his lobs. So and the team is really well rounded with Proctor and Kneppel, where
yeah,
even
and
if Flag
Malawatch,
is
their center, bro.
right, even if Flag is struggling, they have guys who can step it up, and I think they have the easiest matchup in the first Final Four game against Houston. Houston's a solid team; they're always in there. They did lose to San Diego State this year, so and as a quick side note, that's probably the only reason San Diego State even made the tournament. They came in as a playing team because they beat Houston, and then they got absolutely destroyed by North Carolina. One of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. I was so frustrated, but it is what it is.
Is what it
But
is.
but that tells you something. But Duke looks really good. I still have them winning it, regardless of me picking them in the beginning. I still think they're the favorites to win, but I think Florida and Auburn are still really solid teams, and they've played some tough games, and they've really
Yeah,
made their way through. So,
I think the only thing to look out for with Auburn is their big.
mm-hmm.
Um, the lefty, forget his name, like
Janai
Janai or
Broome.
yeah, Broom. Um, he kind of hurt his right arm at the end of last game, and he was like in the back for a while. Auburn managed to survive without him, and Broom ended up coming back into the game to but he was like in and out at the end of the game. I don't even think he like closed the game in the last minutes, maybe because they didn't need him to. They think they ended up being up by a lot of points near the end. But just something to watch. I mean, the game itself is not until Saturday, so he'll have had basically a
Mm-hmm.
full week to maybe recover. But that's definitely something to watch because he's a
Mm-hmm.
double-double machine. Like he's averaging 20 and 10,
Yeah,
uh,
he's
at
the
least in
guy.
the
He's the
tournament,
guy.
maybe in the season.
I think he was the player of the year. Um, so, but in my bracket, I picked Auburn to go to the final and play Duke, but I think I have Florida winning that game. Florida was the hottest team going into the tournament, and all they've done is win. They've been playing really well. They've been playing some great basketball, and I just feel like they'll have the edge over Auburn. I mean, it's going to be a good game. I think Broome is the X factor for sure. If he's still struggling, or not struggling, but gets injured, or is his injury still bothering him, then Florida's got a really good chance to win, and they can. I think they're probably the toughest matchup against Duke.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've been a great shooting team. They're big. They got lots of bigs on their team as well. Like they got lots of height and length. I think in the past 2 games, like against Texas or against Texas Tech, they were kind of and UConn. You know, it's a very close game, so they've definitely been tested during March Madness. But somehow, uh, you know, Walter Clayton Jr. just clutch factor at the end of games with the 3-pointers. He had a crazy 3-pointer in the last game against Texas Tech where, you know, he got past the ball on a cut. 2 guys kind of converge. He's like, okay, let me just dribble out to the 3, not even think about it, turn around, fade away, and it goes in.
That's
It's
like a
like,
Steph Curry 3 right there,
yeah.
honestly.
He's got so much confidence, I think, right now, and he's just been balling. And then he has so many players around him that can help Florida make noise. But yeah, 4 1 seeds, first time since 2008. Last time the 1 seeds were in it, I think it was Derrick Rose was there on Memphis. Russell Westbrook was there for UCLA.
They got was that the same year with Kansas where
Kansas.
they won it? Mario Chalmers hit
Yep.
the shot just in the
And then I
overtime.
forget the 4th team, but lots of stars in that tournament, and there's, you know, a lot of stars in this tournament as well. And we'll see how their careers pan out. I will say I filled out did you fill out a second chance bracket via ESPN?
No, I just
So
did the one.
I just did the one for our group, and literally like before going to bed on the first night of March Madness, I was like, my bracket's definitely perfect, and then they just got absolutely crushed on that first day because this year I picked. I mean, I feel like I always do. I try to pick some upsets, some like hot takes, at least in the early rounds, and like have a team that maybe isn't favored to go to the Elite Eight or like the Sweet 16 to make it. And all of those missed because they're this year just wasn't a year of upsets.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted a second chance, so I filled out a second chance bracket, and I filled out. I think I got in my original bracket, I got 7 out of the 8 teams for the Elite Eight,
Mm-hmm.
and the one team I missed was Houston. So then I basically filled out the same bracket for that and replaced like Houston just going far. And then I made another bracket where I literally picked all chalk, so all the higher seeds, which is what has happened in the Sweet 16. There hasn't been a single upset. So right now, I have a perfect bracket going into the Final Four, which you would think is like crazy. I get like it just hard. I guess hard to do. But I entered like into groups on ESPN, like the Sports Center group, to see because on my thing it says I'm ranked, number 1 in the world. But you're tied, you can be
Yeah.
tied with people at number 1. There are so many people that picked like because it's even a default that you can do on ESPN. Like you can tell it pick a perfect bracket, like pick high seeds to win every game. But as of right now, my Final Four is all the 1 seeds. I have Florida against Duke in the final, and Duke winning. It's like the most favored bracket to pick, but apparently ESPN is going to give out $50,000 worth of prizes, and I think if you're at the top, I think they give 25 people or 20 people $2,000. So, but I think there's just so many brackets that
Mm-hmm.
filled it out the exact way that I did
Right.
that it's gonna be even more random to see
Is
who
a
gets that
likely
$2,000.
outcome for sure. Yeah.
But
I'll say
anyways,
I'll say for me, the bracket I filled out this year, I had a good bracket. I don't know if you noticed me at the top of the standings for most of the tournament, but I was in the top million for like I think I was in the top million and after the round of 64. I think I only got 3 or 4 of the first round games wrong,
yeah,
and 2 of those was I picked Clemson and High Point.
that I picked those, and that was early in the day too.
So, but after that, it dropped off a little bit, but I'm like ranked like 5 million right now. But in our group right now, I'm number 4. Not too bad. We got Andrew in first with 990. And then tied first, he is Florida winning. And then tied for second is Josh Zand and Lucas at 980. Zand's got Duke, of course. Lucas got Florida. And then we got me at 940. Number 4, Carter had a good bracket. He's at 900 in 5th.
Yeah, well, Carter had ChatGPT fill out his bracket.
Yeah, he goes in the chat, they're like, Carter's bracket's insane. And I'm tied. And I didn't use ChatGPT. Where's my credit? Where is my credit? I had a good bracket this year. I'm usually in the bottom half because I pick a lot of upsets, but I decided to be a bit more conservative this year. I picked like good upsets. Like I had Colorado State. I think that was my big pick.
Yeah.
And I had like Arkansas. I had like some, I had like a lot of the 10s winning. Like New Mexico. I had New Mexico. So like, they weren't like big underdogs, but I was able to get a lot of like the very slim ones. Like I had Creighton as a 9, like a lot of those close ones. I was able to pick a lot of those right. So pretty happy with my bracket this year. It's never going to be perfect, but
yeah, I think
I'm usually in the bottom half because I go a little. I try to pick a lot of upsets, but was definitely more conservative this year.
Yeah, and Lucas filled out his bracket using autofill. He matched Matthew Berry, the former ESPN fantasy guru. He just took his bracket, and now
Lucas
he's
waits
in third.
until like 5 minutes until it's due. He is the ultimate procrastinator. I don't even want to get into it because I live with this kid. During COVID classes, he'd be in bed at 8:59 for a 9 a.m. class. So,
well, I will say I reminded Lucas. I was like, you have, I don't know, only a few hours to get this bracket in. Like, you better do it. So, let's just say, Lucas, if you're listening, if you hear this, if you win the bracket, I think I deserve a little small little. Give me $1, $5 Venmo.
You're already getting $2,000 from.
No, well, I don't know if I will. But
where's the third chance where I picked just the final 4? Where's the third?
But so going to like you said you've been doing pretty well this March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that this year would be like someone had a perfect bracket up until the last game of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what that last game. I think the last game was Oregon Arizona, and he had picked Oregon, and Arizona won, so that like the last perfect bracket was eliminated from existing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that the way this year went is going to be like the closest, or like would have had the best chance for someone to get a perfect bracket.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
because
keep going.
It was just so chalk, as they say. Like all the high seeds won. Now you had to pick the correct upsets. 10 beating St. John's, the 2 6 seeds in BYU and Ole Miss, beating Iowa State, the 3 seed, and Wisconsin, the 3 seed. So there were like some tricky ones that maybe not a lot of people got, but like I feel like this could have been the year that someone got a perfect bracket and it didn't happen. And I think,
Well, if you look back at like some of the most recent brackets, you have so many different bracket busters. Like fairly, like I'm not gonna say how many years ago it is because it's hard to keep track. But like Fairleigh Dickinson with the 16, and UMBC with the 16, Oral Roberts with the 15. St. Peter's with the 15. They beat Purdue in like the Sweet 16. And even the year San Diego State made it to national championship as a 5 seed, and they played 8 seed FAU in the Final Four game. Like,
right,
all those teams like break brackets, and there's nothing you could do about it. So like having like like I said, all the 1 seeds in the Final Four, and then most of the 2 seeds and a 3 seed is making up the Elite 8. Like it was just so easy to predict because there just wasn't any volatility. Any just like random Cinderella teams, and I think you do need that. I think some people might be complaining about it, but I think you just gotta let the game go how it goes, and it's it's always a good change of pace sometimes to see something different. If it was 1 seeds every single year, then I mean it definitely wouldn't be as interesting.
Right, that's what makes it March Madness. You just never know what's going to happen. Because you're 1 year, like last year, or even the year that San Diego State and FAU made it to the Final Four, I remember the next year, like I was picking so many upsets to go far, and then
Mm-hmm.
I either picked the wrong ones or not enough or like too many, whatever. And then even this year, you know, I think just in the I prior to filling in my bracket, I saw a stat where it was like the final four the last 9 years or 9 out of 10 years, that if you add up the seeds
Mm-hmm.
of each of those four teams, it was greater than 10. So now then I'm thinking, well, shoot, I got 3 1 seeds and a 2 seed in my final four, which I ended up keeping. But
That's
I'm
what I
like,
did too. That's
that
what I
only
did
ends up
too.
to that
I
only
didn't
ends up
put
to
all
five.
four because I didn't put all four because I didn't want to be that guy. You know,
Yeah,
like who puts all one seeds as the five? Like that doesn't happen.
right. And so
So
then it's madness. But
it's madness. It's madness. But
will be
I
interesting
am
to see
looking
how the final four
forward.
plays out.
You think before we head off or move on to the next topic, what's your prediction for each game and the national championship game? Like do like your little Final Four analysis. I think I have what I
I think it's still Duke, Florida.
I agree. I
And
agree,
then
and I have Duke winning. I have Duke
I think
winning.
it's Duke winning as well. I think I mean all from the start of the Sweet 16 and on, there really haven't been a lot of close games. Like the Texas Tech Florida game was close,
Texas Tech
but
and then Arkansas Sweet 16 was
yeah, but like Auburn, they were trailing to Michigan, but then they ended up beating Michigan by a lot of points. Uh, Tennessee crushed Kentucky, and then Duke or Houston crushed Tennessee. Duke shut down Alabama, like
yeah,
the highest scoring
and
offense in
Alabama
the
had like
league.
120 almost 120 points against BYU.
Yeah, and they set the record for 3-pointers made. They made like 25 out of 51.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I hope these next four games, and I think they will be
Yeah.
the closest of the whole tournament.
Well, they are the best teams because they are the
But
ones. They were picked as the one seeds and they've won all their games, so they are the best teams. So I think these games will be
it's gonna be a lot of
close.
star power.
At least one will be close. At least
Yeah, right. I would hope so.
yeah. Well, that's enough about college basketball. Definitely some interesting storylines there. But at the same time, we got the NBA season, the regular season coming to a close, and a lot of teams are starting to lock in their playoff spots and starting to get an idea of who's going to play who. And it looks like the Lakers have been honing in that 4 seed for, feels like the past 3 weeks at least.
Yeah,
Things are looking good at least. I think we talked about that was something that if we did end up with a 4 seed, that's something we'd be happy with. So I want to hear your thoughts about how things are going.
yeah. I think ending up in the top four will be huge for the Lakers if they can do that. Like just having that first round home court advantage, because we're not gonna get like we. There is a world that we could push because it's so tight right now, and we just beat the Rockets. There is a world where we could push to the 2 seed
Yeah.
and have home court advantage all if we were to make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. But I think like what's realistic is that is the 4 the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case you would assume that you'd only have home court advantage for one of the first round if it were to go
Mm-hmm.
perfectly according to seeding.
Right.
And I really think it's important. And I also think it's important that we don't play Denver. We end up on the opposite side of the bracket as Denver. Now I think we split the season series with them 2-2. But one of the games we didn't have our starters in LeBron and Luka playing. In the other game, they didn't have Jokic and Jamal Murray. So,
Mm-hmm.
but they're scary. The Nuggets are frightening. Going up against Jokic and Murray is not a good matchup for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, the fortunate thing is right now Denver's the 3 and the
yeah,
Lakers are the 4. And like if we build up to that 3, then then the Nuggets will drop to the 4 and we'll still be on the other side because if we win the first round as a 3 seed, then we play the winner of the 2 and the 7. Or there's the plan, but 2-7.
Yeah, I guess it's not as of right now. If it's not real, it wouldn't be realistic for us to play them because we're kind of like they would stay above us or they would pass us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we fall down to the 5, it just means we'd probably swap with Memphis,
Mm-hmm.
and just not get that home court advantage.
Yeah.
But
So.
my worst fear is us either falling to 6 and then playing Denver as the 3, or Denver falling to 4 or 5 and us being in, which I feel like can happen. I'm pretty sure Denver has a tough schedule ahead, and so do
Mm-hmm.
we. We have to play the Thunder twice. We play the Rockets again. Not We play the Warriors on Thursday. Not an easy schedule going ahead. So
Mm-hmm.
just hoping that they could close out the season strong.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now just for reference. I don't have it memorized. But I mean, if we're looking at the West right now, I want to just kind of go down and kind of talk about, the teams that, are leading the conferences and, where they're kind of at right now. I mean, if we're looking at the West, I mean, I mean, before we get started, I think the West is better than the East. I think we've had this conversation
100%.
probably last episode, and it just looks like, I mean, you have in the East, like all the playing teams are below 500, like what's going on. So, and I mean, we were talking about conference realignment and all that stuff. But besides that, look in the West. I mean, you got OKC 14 and a half games ahead of the
Of second.
Rockets.
Yeah.
From second
They're
place. They're 63-12 on a 10-game winning streak.
they're ridiculous. Like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is insane at basketball. He's so crafty, and he's a player in today's NBA that like is just a complete out. He takes so many layups in mid-range, which you
Mm-hmm.
don't see a lot of in the NBA nowadays. It's a lot of layups, free throws, threes. Like the mid-range has kind of been taken out of the game. The only other player that I can really think of that does a lot of mid-range is DeMar DeRozan,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Jimmy Butler. But like, there's not a lot of mid-range players in the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and Shea's just feasting. He's
Yeah.
actually ridiculous.
I mean,
He scored the most points out of any player. He's leading in points per game. And I saw a stat. If you take the total amount of points Shea, and this really speaks to how good the Thunder have been this year.
Mm-hmm.
If you take the points that Shea has scored in the first 3 quarters, I think he's still top 3 or top 5 in points scored this year. So he's doing like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
ridiculous.
Shea is a definition of a 3-level scorer, and he is excellent at all 3 levels. And that just opens the offense for the Thunder because
Yeah, and he's got
teams are game
3-point
planning
shooters
for
all
him.
around him too.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what level he's going to go to, and you got to kind of like figure out, where to stop him. And if you have to double team up, like at least bring some help to stop him. And you got great wing players around him. I mean, led by Jalen Williams. You got Aaron Wiggins. You got some really good wings. You got Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. I think Hartenstein was just a really
So good.
it was a really solid pickup for him. He played great for the Knicks in the postseason last year. I remember watching him
He played
against the
incredible. Like
Pacers,
he was
and I feel like
huge.
that's great. He's been huge, and I feel like that's been able to expand, like help Chet, just figure out his role, because I think Chet's a 4 and a 5, and being able to bring in Hartenstein brings that flexibility, lets Chet space the floor, and doesn't put the wear and tear on him, having to deal with big centers like guarding Jokic and Edie, or whoever else in the West,
Exactly.
Anthony Davis. Like, I think just the
Because
way
that's
that and yeah, sorry, but the way that the Thunder have been structured, plus they have so many draft picks, plus they're so young. The oldest players like Alex Crusoe, like it is just what they've built so far is like they're the next dynasty. And I mean, it's kind of a bold take, but they're the following the Warriors dynasty, they're the next dynasty. They have so many assets, and they have the best player in the NBA right now, I think, just by performance. and their future's bright. And I'm you know what, as much as like, obviously I want the Lakers to do well, like I think it's going to be cool to see the Thunder make some noise. And if things don't work out for the Lakers, I'd like to see them make a run, because OKC's always been around and about when they had, KD and Russ and, those big teams, but they kind of got ditched, and, it's kind of nice to see them get a resurgence.
Yeah. And I think it's a great point that you brought up about Hartenstein, like, and how he has been such a good ad for the Thunder as a whole, but especially for Chet, and just like the big man, or like the of the bigs like on the OKC roster, because last year and like in years past, I just remember the OKC Thunder were very good last year, and they've been getting better and better as the years have gone on. But they kind of had a disappointing end of the season last year, losing in the playoffs. But like, whenever the Lakers, for example, would play the Thunder in years past, the Thunder were great against almost every team. But whenever the Lakers would play them, I feel like we matched up very well against them because we had a guy like Anthony Davis, and Chet could not guard Anthony Davis. Like, he's just not as strong, and we would be able to dominate on the inside. But now you add a big in Isaiah Hartenstein, who's really good at rebounding, who's not afraid of contact, and he's just he's a big dude. He's a big dude, and so that really helps take the load off of Chet, and just like have that center who is great at setting screens, even a good passer. He's got a great floater shot in the lane, that not many bigs have, and I think that's been a great add. And then you have all the offensive dynamics in Shea, Jalen Williams, and Wiggins. And then they have all these good on-ball defenders in Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, and Alex Caruso. It's like they're a perfectly well-rounded roster with two All-Stars in Shea and Jalen Williams. Shea, the leading scorer.
They got three All-Stars. They got Shea, they got Gilgeous, and they got Alexander.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think it would really be a shame if the Thunder didn't win this year. It's the Thunder or the Celtics, like.
Well,
but
you're missing a team, but I want to get to them. But I do want to mention,
sure, but like,
I do want to mention some of these other teams that are in contention as well. I mean, Houston's been a surprise this year. I did not expect them to be, in the position that they're in right now. I think Şengün has blossomed into a star. He's so well-rounded. And he's just been able to help this team, and they got some good pieces with, Jalen Green. And
yeah, they have lots of depth as well.
Mm-hmm. Fred VanVleet. Or do they have Fred VanVleet still?
Yep.
Yeah. So they're looking good. Talked about the Nuggets. We know who the Nuggets are. We don't got to get into them. But do want to flash into the East, because I want to talk about the Cavaliers and the Celtics, because I feel like I think you have the Knicks, who are, the third team. But I think for the East, the favorites are the Cavs and the Celtics. And I think the Celtics got the experience, but Cavs got a really good roster, and I really like what they have going on too.
Yeah, it's fair. I think the Cavs. It would be a shame. It would be a shame if they lost this year too. I think you're absolutely right. Like, these two teams in OKC and Cleveland, and then you have Boston, who just manages to have one of the best rosters in the NBA, and they've spent money on all of these guys. Those three teams are definitely the favorites, and then the rest of the West is pretty powerful. Like, I feel like any team could really come out. I just hope that the East this year can be just more competitive. I feel like last season, like we discussed in the previous podcast, there weren't a lot of like long series. It's like 5-game series.
Well,
especially,
I felt like the one series that like the best Eastern Conference series that I saw was the Knicks and Pacers.
Yeah.
That was a really fun series. And then The
But
Pacers
then the
just got
Pacers
rolled.
lost. Like they
They
just
just
got
got
steamrolled.
rolled. So it was like, what's the point? But like to get to back to that is I feel like the Cavs can be that team because I feel like the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be the Cavs and the Celtics, and I think the Cavs can make it competitive. I would favor the Celtics in a 7-game series, but I would I think it can go to 6 or 7 games with the Cavs. I mean, I think like you said with the Thunder, they're just so well rounded because they have their scoring guards. They got Garland, they got Mitchell. They can put up 40 any night that they want, And then you got your bigs with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And what I really like is they're both kind of centers, but they've really found a way to play together. Because I feel like putting two centers together can sometimes clash each other, but I feel like they've really been able to figure it out. And I know Jared Allen's more I mean, they're both defensive, but Evan Mobley's more offensive than Jared Allen, and they've been able to figure out how to space out. And then they brought in DeAndre Hunter, which we talked about the trade deadline. I mean, I feel like that's like the perfect fifth starter as like a wing. He's a great scorer and he's elite defensively. So they've got a great roster but it's just, I think their depth's good, but their depth isn't nearly as good as, the Celtics or the Thunder, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it will be Cavs Celtics in that Eastern Conference Finals, and I agree. I think it'll be a competitive series, but I also fear that the Celtics just sweep them, and it'll be 4 close games, but the Celtics will be able to close. I
Don't
hope that's not the
don't say
case.
that.
I hope it's not the case. I hope we can't
That's
have the Celtics
hey,
win.
that's what Lucas wants. That's what Lucas wants.
That's what he
But
wants. We can't have it. But yeah, I think the Lakers themselves only have 7 games left, so I imagine the other teams in the league have around the same amount, 5 to 7 games, 5 to 8 games remaining in the schedule. It's going to be a crazy race to the finish in the West, a not so crazy finish to the regular season in the East, but I'm excited for playoff basketball. And I just hope for us, I hope the Lakers can make a push and give us some excitement.
And honestly, I would rather face the Grizzlies than the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that's crazy to say.
no, it's not at all because Steph instills so whenever I have to watch Steph, I'm stressed. My stress level is at an all-time high. Now, the Grizzlies are no easy team. They have great offensive players, but
and they got Jaren Jackson Jr., who's All-Star Defensive Player of the Year.
But anytime Steph touches the ball, I'm freaking out.
Oh yeah,
anytime he shoots it, I think it's going.
When it's the playoffs, it turns up a notch. It doesn't matter. You don't. I feel like we've said this with how players play in the regular season. Players don't play the same. Maybe some do. Look at your Josh Harts, but besides that, I mean, players turn up, especially your stars. Look at Steph. Think about Steph in the Olympics. How he just took over.
Yeah, that was exciting because it was the only time I have ever, aside from that, and the time that I think Steph and LeBron put on the same All-Star team together. It was the only time I could root for Steph, and it was so fun rooting for him because he's so good.
Yeah.
But I can't, when he's on the Warriors, I can't have that. And speaking about the Warriors in Memphis, they're playing tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And Steph had more than 30 points in the first half. He had 8 3-pointers in the first half. It's he's ridiculous. So we don't want that in the playoffs. Last time we faced them in the playoffs, we beat them 4-2 a few years ago. But the Warriors, always a scary team to face when you have a guy like Stephen Curry on your roster.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really looking forward to breaking down when the final playoff bracket comes out. I'm actually really looking forward to kind of breaking down the series and giving our predictions and thoughts about things because there's going to be some good series. There's going to be some good series, especially in the West. And we'll see how the playing goes in. I mean, you got Minnesota and the Clippers in the play-in, who even I think they can always make some noise in the playoffs as lower seeds. Anthony Edwards. I gotta say, after we filmed the podcast, I think it was the next day. I sold one more night in Phoenix, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Phoenix Suns game, and they played Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, and Ant had 40. Ant had
They popped
40.
off. They killed him.
Ant, when he got subbed out at the end of the game, was bowing to the crowd. Like, this guy, like, I'm telling you, he's I don't he could be the next Jordan. It's a bold take, and he probably won't reach the heights that Michael Jordan had, because I mean,
In terms of the championships and
insane.
everything.
But never rule it out. But he is the most like MJ that I've ever seen. The athleticism,
He's really good.
and he's got the shot, and he's got the confidence. So can never rule the Timberwolves out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they went to the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
They've been playing really well as of late. Now they've moved up to the 7th seed, but the play-in tournament beginning 2 weeks from now, April 15th.
Hopefully, hey, I want to see the Kings in there. Maybe the Kings can make some noise, because
Maybe they can make some noise. They have been playing well as of late as well. I mean, I think do they have a losing record? I'm not sure,
they're
but
36 and 39. They've lost their last two,
yeah. But
and
like I think the
they're
Zach LaVine,
they're only a game and
DeMar's,
a half above Phoenix.
yeah. You got
So
Phoenix
they
even
could
as the
always
11th
pull a
seed.
king. They could always pull a Kings and
Yeah, and
lose
lose.
out.
We
So
shall see. Well, it's an
hopefully
exciting.
not. I want to see for Vaughn and every other Kings fan their sanity.
Yeah, I'd love for them to sneak into the 8th seed there if we're on that side of the bracket. Them to upset the OKC Thunder and the Lakers to beat the Grizzlies, and then us, play the Kings, get a trip to the West to the Western Conference Finals. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So
But yeah, playoffs, play-in tournament starting in 2 weeks. Playoffs shortly thereafter. Exciting time in the NBA. A lot of good teams to watch. A lot of good teams to pay attention to. We'll see how things shake out, and we'll bring you further analysis down the road.
yep. Well, for our last topic of the pod, we're at like 42, so doing pretty good on time. I think we've had some pretty in-depth convos. It's been pretty nice. But the last topic we want to talk about is, some NFL movement. There's been the NFL offseason. I think we want to specifically talk about, some quarterback movement, because that's usually, the most interesting part, I think, in my opinion, at least, of, the NFL offseason, to see, who's going to be leading these teams, and as a big indicator of how the teams are going to perform in the following season. But what's been like one quarterback move, Justin, that's kind of stood out in your opinion so far?
I mean, I think this year is very interesting. And maybe it's very interesting in terms of the lack of interesting names, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of crap being moved around right now.
Yeah.
All the good Josh Allen signed his pretty extension to go back to the Bills. All the other big name quarterbacks, I mean, Brock Purdy's contract is still up for discussion. Nothing's been finalized there, but it's like you got the best name is Sam Darnold to the Seahawks, just because of what he did with the Vikings team. Now they collapsed in the playoffs, but he did have himself a good season last year. But the rest of the moves, I mean, it's just a bunch of either old heads or unproven guys moving around and just like staying, I guess, relevant because they're signing deals and like going to these crappy teams. But it's like, one, the teams that these quarterbacks are going to are not good, and two, I don't really think that the quarterback going to these teams is going to make them much better than maybe what they were last season or in years past.
Yeah.
But
I think the thing about to note with Darnold going to the Seahawks was, first of all, that wasn't a team I thought was going to get him. I wasn't really thinking of the Seahawks as an option. I knew they were kind of in a quarterback they were kind of unsure about their situation, because Geno's not a long-term option, and then once you kind of heard that Geno was going to the Raiders, which, I mean, upgrade for the Raiders, I think they need that. and they can always wait to get another quarterback later in a draft because we can get back to the quarterback draft class. But I think it's a weaker one compared to previous years or future years. Quarterbacks that are still in college football. So I think it made a lot of. I think for the Seahawks, I think it's a good pickup because you upgrade there. The interesting thing is no more DK Metcalf. He got traded to the Steelers, which don't have a quarterback. We'll get to that, but you're dealing with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think had a breakout season, and you're really giving him, that wide receiver one opportunity as a young player, which I think he can totally get. I think he can do it. I think especially with, his targets are definitely going to increase as well. I don't know if he led the team in targets, but I feel like he did because he had a really good season. So interesting things to think about in Seattle. You got the Raiders with Geno. I mean, it's the Raiders, man. Like, they're whatever. They still haven't really built. I don't think they've built enough hype yet in Vegas yet, unfortunately. But once they get good, they will. I'm not too worried. There's no really worry about that. And then you also got like Justin Fields, who signed with the Jets. I think that's a good pickup for the Jets. I think because Rodgers is still in the market, and that relationship was done. Rodgers wasn't very good with the Jets. And then you got some movement with the Giants with I think who was it? Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So kind of some minor deals. I mean, you had, sorry to jump around a bit, but you had the Bengals lock up Jamar Chase and
T.
T.
Higgins.
Higgins. And you still got Kupp's on the trade block. I think the Rams picked up Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I think Kupp went to the Seahawks.
Did he? Is that official?
So, which is interesting. I'm pretty sure.
Wait.
Which is interesting because I think JSN was kind of a slot receiver, and that's been Cooper Kupp's primary role as well. So
he is on the Seahawks. That totally crossed my mind. So everything I said about Jackson Smith and Jigba, I take that back.
Well, I think he'll still get a lot of work, but
I think so. But Kupp gets a lot of targets, and I think that's definitely going to help with.
Yeah, you need a good wide receiver too on your team. I mean, I think it was very important in the scenario where the Bengals locked up their top two wide receivers. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are a great duo, and when they're both on the field, they help each other out tremendously. Because if you double Jamar, like, you can't leave T. It's so it's good for the Bengals. I think it'll be good for the Seahawks getting a guy like Cooper Kupp. Hopefully he can. I think he had a somewhat of a down season this season in the second half particularly, but
injuries and yeah.
But hopefully that he can get better. I think he signed a 3-year deal, and then you even had a guy like Stephon Diggs, another old head, going to the Patriots on a 3-year deal, maybe helping out that rookie quarterback and Drake May over there.
I mean, that's definitely going to help. I feel like the Patriots kind of had a weak wide receiver room. You couldn't really even name a wide receiver on that team last season. So that's a good pickup for sure. And then also one to note is your Niners traded away Debo to the Commanders.
Yeah, they traded away Debo, but I'm not really too upset.
You got some good wide receiver. I mean, you signed Ayuk to a big contract.
Which he didn't perform on last year and then got injured.
Well, he got hurt. Yeah, I mean, he held out a training camp, which didn't help. So obviously, he's not going to start the season well.
The Niners lost a lot of players this offseason.
They did, a lot of defensive guys. But to get back to the wide receiver room, they still got Juwan Jennings, who I think probably had the best season
Very good.
of all the. And then you drafted Ricky Pearsall coming off a second year. I mean, he got shot. And he still was productive, so he's got to have a full season on him. You still got Kittle, of course, McCaffrey, of course, and I think the Niners need. I mean, the first thing is they need to re-sign Brock. I think that's the guy. That's the guy. You need to keep Brock.
Well, there's nobody else. There literally isn't.
Nobody else, and it's so hard to get a quarterback, and he's very reliable. And I think a lot of Niners, I don't know how you feel about Brock, but I think some Niners fans kind of overrate him a little bit. But I think he's still fringe top 10. I think he's around that 11 to 13 mark if you're ranking all the quarterbacks in the league. So he's still a top quarterback, and he still has room to grow to become a top 10 quarterback. I don't know what your opinion is on that. And I think also with the Niners is they're excellent at drafting players. They know how to bring in talent. Brock was the last pick of the draft when he got drafted. So as a Niners fan, I wouldn't be worried. It was kind of a down season anyway, so there was some change that you need anyways. But I want to hear your opinion on how you feel about the Niners situation, obviously, coming from a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see a lot of these guys leave. Like, we lost a lot of defensive players, and our defense, I think, already struggled at the end of the last season. Now, we still have Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and like all those guys, but it'd be interesting to see how we rebuild that side of the ball. Because it's gonna, I mean, defense is very important, and I think in recent years we've had some poor signings on the defensive side of the ball, like spending money and it just not really panning out. The name that comes to mind was Javon Hargrave. Like he went to the Super Bowl with the Eagles when they played the Chiefs the first time. After that, we signed him to like a 4-year, $90 million contract, whatever. And then he sucked. Like he was of no use, really real use to us. So I think we released him in the offseason. From the Brock side of things, I'm all for bringing Brock back. I think people do overrate him at times, but he's also, I think Niners fans maybe overrate him, and the media can like sometimes underrate him. He's been very good for us. The one thing I will say is I'm really, really nervous about his ability to perform in inclement weather, and like he's not good when it rains, which oftentimes I feel like NFL games don't really, especially when you're playing in San Francisco, you don't really have to worry about that type of stuff.
But when you're
Like,
traveling,
but when you're traveling, you are, and then it just like I think this last year there were a lot of games where we had bad weather, and Brock really, really struggled. Um, and so I just hope that like either this year we get lucky and there's no bad weather ever, or he can kind of figure out how to fix. I think it literally just has to do with his hand size. And NFL football is huge, and when the ball gets wet or there's snow or there's all this extra stuff, it's obviously it's going to be very hard to throw a football. So
what I think about that is I think that also comes with experience. I think the more games you play in bad weather, I think the better the better you get because I've been dealing with it more often. So it'll
sure,
come with experience as well. But I think in the draft, the Niners should target. I think it's either the 11th or 12th pick. I think I get a tackle. I think they really need
yeah,
that.
you got to get an offensive lineman.
You got to get an offensive lineman, especially since Trent Williams is on his way out.
Yeah, we already lost another guy. I think he left.
He's getting old, and I think it's perfect to bring in a guy for Trent to mentor, to be that
Yeah,
next guy, and you can bring in a really physically imposing guy. So, yeah, interested to see what the Niners do. I do know a lot about the Niners because I do live with the Niners fans, so I do hear a lot of stuff, a lot of chatter. But my other roommate is a Steelers fan. So, and I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention about the Niners, but I did want to talk about the Steelers quarterback situation because it's kind of the only
yeah. I
team
think
left.
last thing to say about the Niners, you know, 2 seasons ago we made it to the Super Bowl. The year before we made it to the NFC Championship game. Brock got hurt. Our backup quarterback got concussed. We had no Jimmy G, so we lost to the Eagles. This last season, our offensive line sucked, so I agree that we need an offensive lineman. But I have been surprised that we haven't really signed any defensive linemen. Like our pass rush last year sucked. We could not get pressure on the quarterback. I feel like at any time in crunch time we lost several games because the quarterback, it would be an obvious passing down because they would be down in the game less than 2 minutes, and they just got all the time in the world, and then they either throw it or they run for like 20 yards, and I think we just could not get pressure on the quarterback, especially when Nick Bosa was dealing with injuries at the end of the season. But
And
I'm
and
hopeful.
additionally, the Niners did sign Mac Jones as the backup, which honestly I think is a decent signing. I think he's a good backup. And I apparently Shanahan wanted to draft Mac Jones over Trey Lance.
Yeah, right. So
So comes full circle, and I think Brock and Mac are good friends. So it
yeah,
comes
and
around.
I think the Niners is a perfect. It's a perfect organization for a quarterback,
Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Sam Darnold. You
and
can. That's all you got to say.
it's the like you go there to resurrect your career. So I think, um, if Brock Purdy doesn't play well or he gets injured and Mac Jones gets an opportunity, I would expect him to kind of capitalize on that and
Yeah,
see if
because
he.
he was with Jacksonville last year, and that wasn't a fit.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is just not good in general. So yeah,
But anyways,
but
yeah, the Steelers.
yeah, they're looking for a quarterback. I think right now, the top of their depth chart is Mason Rudolph, who they re-signed from the Titans,
Who
from the team
sucks?
before. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, in the games that he played for the Titans, he looked better than Levis. He looked better than Levis, but
Yeah,
that's not
I
really
would. I
saying
would.
much.
But that's not really saying much.
So, but I mean, obviously, I think it's a decent backup because he has experience with the Steelers already, and he has a relationship with Mike Tomlin. So, but Steelers looking for a quarterback, you would think, but Aaron Rodgers still on the market, and you would think that would already happen by now, but really hasn't happened. But also, they're looking at quarterbacks in the draft. They're not going to get a top quarterback like Cam Ward or Shador, but I think they're looking at. I think their main target's been Jackson Dart, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers took him with their first round pick. They got a late first round. I wouldn't be surprised if they took their guy. They also might be interested in Jalen Milroe from Alabama. So I'm interested to see like what route they go. Do they take Rodgers? Because Rodgers would be obviously a short term because Rodgers is close to retirement. I honestly think Rodgers should retire now. I don't know what you think, but probably should retire now. So you could either go with that route, or you could go with drafting a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. I thought they should have just drafted one of those guys and re-signed Russell Wilson for 1 year because I think Pickens and DK Metcalf were both deep threats, and Russell Wilson's really good at long balls. So I
The
thought that
moon
was a
ball.
the long ball. But want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think?
I think the Steelers are in a pretty sucky situation.
Yeah.
But like they have George Pickens and DK Metcalf. They traded for DK.
They don't have
Um,
Najee anymore though, so
no
I don't know if
Najee,
they're
but
gonna. I don't know if they're
you
gonna
got
go
Jalen
Jalen
Warren,
Warren or.
and I think did they sign Kenneth Gainwell? Did he go to the Steelers?
I think so. Yeah, he
But
probably with some touches.
anyways, you got some pass catching backs. Um, I don't know. I think like the issue with Rodgers, and I think the reason why it hasn't happened yet, or maybe it won't happen, is I just feel like now I don't, you know, I'm not close with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not close with Mike Tomlin, but from an from a person looking from the outside in, they seem like complete opposite people. Aaron Rodgers has really become like a diva, and like we have to do it this way. We want to do it this way. Like I'm not even gonna listen to the coach. He's calling audibles on like every single play for the Jets. It seemed like,
Yeah.
um, thinking he knows a lot, like not buying into like allowing his coaches to set him up for success. Which to be fair, like Aaron Rodgers has been great and has seen more game than like some of these other coaches in his lifetime, and actually like played through it. But like it didn't really work out for him while being with the Jets. Um, versus Mike Tomlin is a very, I just feel like, stern coach. Like we're gonna do it the Steeler way. And I think you can even see that in some of the frustration of the players. Like some of the players, like uh, Cam Hayward, are being asked, "What do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Like, should you get him?" And he's like, I'm sick and tired of the QB questions. Like, if you want Aaron, if you want to come here, and like let's get to work. If you don't, like stop messing around. I don't know. Like I think he even mentioned like I don't need to go to a dark room to know I want to be a Steeler. Like I'm a Steeler versus Aaron Rodgers with all his like weird therapies and ways of thinking about things. Um,
Do you think he should retire?
so yeah, I mean I think he should have retired after the
the
Packers didn't
injury.
want him anymore. Like,
Well, I was thinking I was thinking after the
yeah,
injury,
the Achilles. Um,
and
that's fair. I
I
think
think he
after
should
the
have gone.
Achilles,
I think he should have gone into last season saying it was his last year and just played it out. And it would have been like the whole farewell tour. But you never
yeah,
know with these guys.
it's tough. I mean, these guys. Aaron Rodgers has been playing football for so long. For all these guys trying to contemplate retirement, like I'm sure it's a very difficult
I
decision.
mean,
This has
look
been
at
their
Brady.
life.
I mean, it took Brady some time to really figure out when he was done, and you
Yeah, and he
people weren't
lost
really
his
sure.
family in the process. Like,
Yeah, and I
it's hard
mean,
to give up. It's a huge part of their lives. They love the game.
mhm,
Um, and I think now, like, Aaron Rodgers may get stuck in the cycle of like trying to keep playing to prove like one last time I can do this.
mhm,
And I don't know if it will happen. I mean, especially even if he were to go to the Steelers. Now the Steelers made the playoffs last year,
mhm.
um, but they fell apart at the end of the season.
Oh
But
yeah,
they're
they
in
like
this.
lot. They lost. I think they lost their like last 3 or 4 games, and they had to face the Ravens. And well, they beat the Ravens earlier in the season, and then they got absolutely whitewashed. It wasn't even close. They couldn't even get down the field. It was like they barely even had the ball. They could barely get down the field. And then when the Ravens just straight
Yeah,
through that defense. So pretty poor performance
and now
there.
you're in a division, with the Bengals and the Ravens. Bengals should return to form, you would think, this season. Um, but I think it's
No.
we'll see what they do.
Yeah.
I think if they end up going to the draft and drafting a quarterback, I mean, I just don't think this quarterback class is that good. And obviously um there could be surprises if they were to draft one of those guys, but I view it too similarly to when they drafted Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
And like they used a late first round pick or a mid first round pick on Kenny Pickett, and look how that turned out.
Yeah.
It's like
Now he's with the Browns.
sometimes it might, hopefully, if they can get, if they think Aaron will be a good fit, or like if they just ride with Mason. I really think that unless some of their scouting report team think that like we got to get one of these quarterbacks that's available, they should just draft a position player that they need to upgrade. Like,
Mhm.
I know Mike Tomlin's on this crazy streak of not having a losing record ever with being on the Steelers. Um, but like, I think they should probably focus on not the quarterback and just upgrading. It is tough because, like I said, they traded for DK. They got George Pickens young. You don't want to frustrate him. Maybe you want to keep him around. But even him and Tomlin don't seem to have that good of a relationship. And I think him and DK may even struggle because DK's kind of been known to get upset or like kind of a crybaby, and Pickens is the same way. And like Pickens suffered last season at times, and he didn't get playing time because like he was just complaining or like making poor decisions on the football field by like getting unnecessary roughness calls. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's a mess in Pittsburgh. And
Yeah, it's not great, but what's even more of a mess is Tennessee. They got the first overall pick. It looks like they'll go with Cam Ward. I think they should. I think they've also there's I think they're still open to the possibility of trading down. I don't know. They probably shouldn't, but it's never a bad thing to rule anything out. Especially like Cam Ward's probably the first overall pick, but I don't know if he's in any other class if he is or not.
yeah, I just think, I mean,
It
it's
might be
so
like a
tough
Bryce
this
Young
year.
thing, honestly. That's that's honestly how I might compare that situation if they do go with Ward.
Yeah, it's a tough. I think it's a tough year to be having one of these top picks because
Hmm.
obviously, if you're one of these teams like the Titans or the Browns, I think you have to pick a quarterback
Hmm.
and hope that it resurrects you. But like, it's so tough because I, at this point, I don't see either of these guys like really becoming a great quarterback in the NFL.
Hmm.
But then again, you never know. Like, it would be so tough to be a GM in the NFL. Like, a
Yeah.
GM in any sport, bro. Like making risks, taking these risks on players,
No.
it's crazy.
I mean, look at the like. Jane Daniels. Like he wasn't even the first quarterback drafted, and he already took his as a rookie. Took his
Yeah, and he
team
took them to the playoffs and won in the first. I mean,
to the NFC Championship game.
yeah,
Like
I
it's
see
so
this.
hard. Yeah.
It is so hard, and so
And
like
I think it's important that like you don't think about the pick necessarily. Like you got to think about who you want. You got to take
yeah,
like you got to like get rid of the concept of like a pick, and you and like as you're like your GM, and you got to be like, oh, like I want this guy. So you're not gonna really people don't care when they're picked. You know, they want to care if they're good or not. So
yeah. This NFL draft I think will be interesting to see how the rookies pan out on their respective teams, and then like I think one last thing to note that's kind of interesting is the Giants have that number 3 overall pick, and if the if the two quarterbacks get taken, I mean they've already signed Russell and Jameis, so like now if say one of those quarterbacks would fall, one, do they take it or do they draft Travis Hunter at that number 3 slot, which could pair with
or
Malik Neighbors?
yeah,
But then you got Russell Wilson or Jameis. For fantasy, I think you'd want Jameis to be throwing him the ball. But like, there's two crappy quarterbacks. Regardless, it's tough.
what you could also do as the Giants is if the Browns don't take Shador, as a Giants. So this could be the same thing with the Browns. Like if Shador drops to them, or it drops 3 to the Giants. They're like, we know teams that want
Yeah, trade
Shador,
down a few
trade
spots.
down, and you get some capital out of it, and then you can, you're probably going to take that team's pick, and then you can get who you want at that spot. So there's a lot of different options you can go. I mean, the Giants filling up the quarterback room like that, it just doesn't seem likely. So as a
I know.
third string, so
Yeah, what was I
I
saying before? The one was it Danny DeVito, but it's Tommy DeVito.
that's one of my favorite moments. Just calling him Danny DeVito the entire time.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting. I think it's just an interesting with also like lack of interest off season. Not a lot of big names moving around, and the big names that are moving around are just old, um, or like becoming less and less relevant as their career goes on. Um, but it'll be interesting to see how things shake out and what the fantasy season looks like next year. See how all these moves impact the players in the respective teams, and if players like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields can return to relevance. It'll be interesting to see. Interesting to
Yep.
and we'll try to bring you the best analysis. It's going forward.
Yep. Well, that's pretty much it. I think the only thing else to note is the MLB season is underway. Opening day was, I think, last Thursday. We're filming this on April 1st, Tuesday. So no big storylines yet to really talk about, but Dodgers are undefeated, so off to a good start. Freddie Freeman did hurt his ankle in the shower, apparently, so that's not very good. The same one that he had surgery on. It was bugging him the entire playoffs last season. But apparently they said he'll be back by Friday. So it easily could have been worse. But
Well,
besides
they
that,
got a long 162 game season ahead.
exactly
I
is a long
think
season.
I
And
think they'll be just fine.
yeah, and yeah,
You just
nothing
hope he
really
doesn't
to
slip in
note
the
so
shower
far.
again when the playoffs come around.
Nah, maybe you should start taking baths or something so he
Yeah.
doesn't.
I
But
guess one interesting thing to note, and we'll see how the rest of the season, plays out. But before the call, we were talking about the torpedo bats. Is that what you called it?
yeah,
Now the Yankees are
shock.
no are using are using these torpedo bats, and they hit 3 home runs on the first 3 pitches of the game, and I think what proceeded to score. They scored like 20 runs.
They had 20 runs. They had 8 homers, and 3 of them were from Judge.
Which were they playing in New York?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
they got
so
that stadium. They got that stupid dimensions. They
yeah,
had the first homer of the season was Austin Wells, leadoff homer, hits at the right field, that short ass right field line or that right field fence, and then the stat comes out, sometimes they're like, yeah, this would be a homer in this many ballparks, and they go, yeah, this would be a home run in 1 out of 30 ballparks. Dude,
Yeah, it is a home run.
Judge,
It is a home run.
Judge with these fences and the torpedo bat's gonna hit like 70 bombs. He's gonna
Yeah.
break records, and it's I mean, I like Judge, but it's the Yankees, man. So
Yeah, but also like if you think like I mean, you play half the games at home.
no.
Now, it's gonna obviously there's home field advantage, but like, people going into that stadium could also use torpedo bats and also
Well, teams are
hit to
starting to
right
order them.
hit to
Teams are
right
starting to
field.
order them, which I mean, it makes sense because
I wonder
there's.
how did they figure this out?
Well, I
Who?
think it was just like the concept of there's more surface area on the bat. So
Yeah.
if you put more surface area on the bat and you know where to hit it, then obviously you're more likely to hit the ball.
I know, but like like baseball bats since the beginning of time have been, I feel like, built the one way,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And now, like, I'm honestly curious as to how this was even allowed, but
Yeah, it
I
is
guess
legal.
if the bat weighs a certain amount, there's probably what I don't know the requirements go into a type of bat you
It's
can
got to be
use.
round. I mean, it's got to be round. It can't be like a cricket bat. Like,
Yeah, but it's so. I mean, whoever came up with this idea, and if it's allowed to stick, um, someone in the Yankees organization got to be paying that man huge. Like if they're able to hit all these home runs and consistently do this for the rest of the season, it's gonna be Sports Center top 10 every night. Like it's gonna be crazy.
162 games. I'm not gonna be able to bear it.
They'll probably start using these in the home run derby too, and they're gonna be hitting like bombs, and it'll
My dad
be
sent me a report saying that the Dodgers were not interested in getting the torpedo bats, so that's interesting. It'll
they
be
don't
kind
need
of.
it. They got the players, bro. They don't need
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know
You don't need the little Yankees hacks. The Yankees kind of
no.
need it. But it will be kind of interesting to see like what teams do implement it and what the results kind of see
And
because
if it's as good for them as it was for the
it's
Yankees,
early. Like you can't really make an assumption about it because it's such a small sample size. It's just one game, and like it's not like those games have never happened before. Like there are anomalies, but like teams do score 20 runs at times. Like it does happen. It's rare, but it's not like it's never happened, and it's not because it could be because of the bats. It may not be because of the bats. We really don't know. So I think one thing to follow is like how what teams are using them and how does that impact their performance on offense.
yeah, definitely. We'll see as the season goes on if this pace keeps up or if it just tails off because, you know, like baseball, you're gonna have hot streaks, you're gonna have cold streaks and everything
Right.
in between. So
It's a game of
we'll
averages. So
see. But definitely something to keep an eye on. And I think could also, if it is um if it does prove to be an advantage, I think, might bring more eyes to baseball and like make it just more entertaining. Having home runs, people go nuts for home runs. They're fun to watch. They're fun to experience, and um, so we'll see if that continues.
yeah, well, a lot of sports going on. We got some exciting stuff. So looking forward to seeing how things evolve, and we'll be talking about it. So yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you made it this far, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to episode 18 of the Just Honin podcast. Your host Justin Mazzola and
Adam Honer.
there we go. That's a wrap. Deuces.